As I wrap it up and finish, I want to just continue this afternoon from wonderful demonstration from Joseph and his helpers to talk about how to instill the understanding about nature to children, and how we as educators, as teachers of life, not only to ourselves, to every human being we meet. And we got to start them young. See, when we get older, when we are more tainted, when we are so brainwashed, it takes a lot of energy and time to try to understand things all over again. So my whole life, I was so lucky as a child growing up in China. And I lived in the villages during the war, and we were very lucky. The first 10 years of my life, we're living with farmers and in a very pure place in China. Not until later, when I moved to the city, I realized how difficult it is to stay pure, stay clear. And since I began teaching my Tai Chi background, my Taoist philosophy in the West, and from my foundation called the Living Tao, and I want to make the Tao a part of the living process. And my focus, when I think of people come to my seminars, I look at them, I see the child in them. I want to share with them the childlike quality that I would like to preserve, to cultivate in me. Now, in my learning, I've been so fortunate, and I have so many wonderful teachers. And as a Chinese, I'm especially aware of how people older than me, and even by 1 year, even few days, are my teachers. And I've been so fortunate to have collaboration, learning from many elders that have sort of brought me up as my mentors. And one of the mentors that in my life is Laura Huxley. And more than 25 years ago, nearly 30 years now, since I first met Laura Huxley, it was through my friend Alan Watts. And I was beginning to teach with Alan Watts. And Alan was very close friend with Aldous Huxley. As when Aldous died, Laura continued to be friends with Alan, and then subsequently we met. And the first time we met was in a New Year seminar when Alan Watts and I were teaching Tai Chi, Zen philosophy, and we had celebrated one evening. And Laura appeared and we started dancing. And this beautiful woman just came into my arms, and so trusting, I picked her up, I started to fly her. That was our first experience together. And she has been my teacher, my friend, and my mentor. And when she founded her wonderful vision called Children is Our Ultimate Investment, she wanted to invest all her life as musician, as innovative teacher. She began teaching about human potentiality way before there is such a term, human potential movement. And when she began the movement with children as our ultimate focus, we got to pay attention to children. Start young, even before they became children. Go to their parents, even before they even think about having children. The very first thought between two lovers, children begin. So Laura Huxley is a romantic. She has the vision, she has a big vision. And she is also an eternal child. Every time I talk to her, her passion, her sense of what she believes is so real, so pure, so childlike. And she inspires me. So I want to be sure that I have the privilege to introduce her to you. And after Laura presents to you her work, and I will come back and join her, we will have a question and answer period. We will share with you more about our work together. So if Laura is ready, backstage, I will bring her out. Let me bring you out. Watch the step.
Slide. That was the most extraordinary flight when Al just picked me up, and I don't know where I was. And then he put me down as though I was a flower. I tell you, it's an experience that one can never forget. But then you know Al, and you know what he does. So I cannot say any more. Well, I am very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to Al and to John and to all of you to be here. You know, you look so beautiful. I think this water that you have in Denver, which I've been getting practically drunk, and it's very high. It puts me in a state, well, to your health, I think somehow. I never drank so much water in my life, I can tell you. It has something in it. So we're going to speak about the family. Just to begin with, just a little thing, that the destiny of the family and the destiny of the earth are inextricably connected. About the family, you can say so many things, and I have two quotations here which show you what tremendous span of possibility the family has. I read you the first quotation. It says, "The family is a place of warm and nurturing feeling, uncontaminated by greed and power hunger. Within the family, and only within the family, and only within the family, individuals are loved for themselves, whether or not they are infirm, incontinent, infantile, or eccentric. That is the family as we wish, as we love to have it." Now there is another quote to the family, which I will read. It's from a French writer. "The family is a nest of vipers." So you see the extreme where one can go when one speaks about the family, and that is the way that it is, particularly now in our strange and difficult culture. Now I have two possible choices, which I will speak about this afternoon, to solve a little this dilemma of the family. One choice is from the book Island. How many of you read Island? All right. Well, I hope that you will read it, because this book represents a culture that is organized so that everyone can flourish in their human potentialities. How many of you have read Brave New World? Okay, well, this is just the other side of Brave New World. This is the other side of the coin. So in Ireland, you find all kinds of things that, is that not loud enough? Is somebody saying something? Oh no, I thought I wasn't. For instance, I just tell you a little thing about Ireland. You know, the most important thing for us, for everyone, to learn is to be attentive. And that is very difficult at any age, I can assure you. So in Ireland, there are little birds flying around and saying, "Attention, attention, attention." And they have another word, which is also very beautiful, and which is karuna, which means compassion. So the entire idea is attention and compassion. Now, one of the things that holds us in Ireland is something called the MAC Club. The MAC Club means the Mutual Adoption Club. That is when a family adopts other families, 5 or 10, 15 families. So when things get a little bit hard at home, the child can go to this other family where he's very welcome, although he has also responsibility and duty, and he doesn't have to wait until Friday at 3 o'clock to go to the therapist. to say, that he's discontented with his family. And on the other hand, I can assure you that the parents are delighted to have a little bit of rest too. So that is one of the possibilities. I will read it to you now. The way that Aldous describes the metropolitan family as it is now in the great cities, all over the great cities. Here is out of the description of in Ireland. Take one sexually inept wage slave, one dissatisfied female, 2 or 3 small television addicts, marinate in a mixture of Freudism and diluted Christianity, then bottle up tightly in a 4-room flat and stew for 15 years in their own juice. So now I read to you the ideal family, which is what they have in this island. Of course, Ireland is a small island in the South Sea. It's not a big metropolis. So there are certain advantages to that. In Ireland, there are no armament, there is no overpopulation, there is no over-centralization. So the family can be like this. It's an ideal family, but it's possible. Take 20 sexually satisfied couples and their offspring. Add science, intuition, and humor in equal quantity, steep in tantric Buddhism, and simmer indefinitely in an open pan in the open air over the brisk flame of affection. That is the family that is a possible family. So why don't you consider that possibility? In a small, sometimes there are small commune where people can get together and do something. Actually, this mutual adoption club is not very different from the original family. The original family was about 20 or 30 people going, we were nomads. We were traveling from one place to another. That is about 5 million years ago. So we had to be together. We could not fight a tiger or a lion. We had to hunt together, to fish together. That was survival, and that is, and protection. All the children were related to everybody. I suppose they called everybody mommy and daddy, because it was a small group. And the idea is the idea of protection and of solidarity, no matter what happens. That was the idea that came to us, but now comes the difficult time. The situation is reversed. The most dangerous place to be for a woman, the statistics tell us this, the most dangerous place to be for a woman is within the family. That's where the most of violence happens. That is the greatest number of emergency calls come from women and children, more emergency calls than all the illnesses and all the accidents put together. So here we have this contrast. We have to do something about it. They say that if only every woman that has been battered would hold hands, would encircle the earth. And there are many desolate inner children, many people are in recovery, so there is truth in that. Naturally, the greatest victim in everything that happens like that are always the children, even if they are not bodily injured, which unfortunately they are. So we come to the second idea, the second possible solution that I want to give you. And we have to take some courage here and look at statistics. Every night in America, there are 100,000 children homeless. They don't know where to go. They don't have a place to sleep. Every 2 hours, a child is murdered in the street. And every 4 hours, a child commits suicide. Now, this is all very dark, but in the center of darkness, there is always light, and you are the proof of that. This conference is the proof of that. I feel that there is so much goodwill here, so much wanting to protect the child so that he's not in danger in the street. I think that each of you are a leader in helping people, their children, to develop their real creative possibility. So although the darkness is there, there is also a great deal of light. Now, what I want to propose to you, and actually I want to plead with you, is not a universal panacea, no, nothing is, but it would help and ameliorate many of the situations for which many of you are working, for the environment, for the injustice. It would help the delinquency. It would help immensely. It would help the illnesses and the real suffering. Now, what the proposition is actually what Aldous said in different words just a few days before he died. He said, our business is to wake up. And what I proposed for you to consider is conscious conception. Now, if you have a spontaneous reaction that this is visionary, wait a second. Is it visionary to try to help the child that is going to be killed every 2 hours? Is it visionary to try to help that other child that commits suicide? If still you think that it should be labeled visionary, then let's make a deal. Let's call it visionary common sense. After all, the most important decision that two people have is to make another life, to bring in another soul, isn't it? That is natural, that is logical. But sometimes the decision, sometimes people do not give enough time to that decision, not as much time as a decision to buy a car, or to refurnish the house, to go on a vacation. You know, I shudder sometimes to think, I hear people saying, oh, that couple, they have some difficulty. They just should have a child. Or I hear saying, well, that young woman is nice, but chemistry is not right. She will have a baby. Well, I shudder to think about this wonderful creature, this lovely, fresh being that is coming, looking forward to love and to everything that is good on earth, and to have to fix the psychological difficulty of a couple, to have to fix a young woman chemistry. So I think that that is a very, very important decision for people to make. And in our book, The Child of Your Dream, Piero Ferrucci and I have written many questions that might help in this decision. Now, for instance, the first question is, why do I want a child? Why do I want a child? Is it because everyone has one, or because this child will do all the things that I did not do? Well, I need someone to love me, so I must have a child. Well, there are many other problems, many other questions. And they are not questions to be answered yes or no. They are questions to be discussed, considered at different times of life. And that the book is about really prelude to conception in the first 5 years. You know, there is something interesting sometimes that happened too. Everybody wants a baby. If in a group you ask, how many of you want a baby? Oh, many hands go up. But ask, how many of you would like a teenager? It's a different story. There is, if supposing that the answer after the question and about thinking and so on, suppose that the answer is in affirmative. So then, the most interesting and rewarding period of your life might take place. It takes about 2 or 3 years to prepare for a child. I mean, first of all, the responsibility is equal. Responsibility and rights are equal for the father and mother. So, first of all, if you want to have a body that welcomes this wonderful, wonderful thing, it's better to clean it up. We don't always eat the best food. We don't always do the best thing for our body. And there is a lot of toxin that have to be cleaned up. So, and that takes about a year or two, depending if you have smoked or drank or whatever. But it's something very, very important. First, make the place clean. Make the place clean. By the way, there has been a lot of, it's very interesting. One has always known that a healthier woman has a better chance to have a healthier baby. That is sort of current and ancient knowledge. There is a tremendous amount of research on nutrition. But the new research is on the sperm. That is fairly recent. And they found out, for instance, that if a man drinks a lot of coffee in the months before conception, the baby is a little bit smaller, the weight is less. And if the man drinks and smoke, there again, they are influenced, those things influence the body because the sperm is, of course, what it is. There is one thing that is very interesting maybe to many people, that vitamin C, it's one of the most important things for the sperm because the testicle contains 7 times as much vitamin C than any other organ. So that might be kept in mind. I think that all this research seems to be superfluous because is it so difficult to imagine that if a man is tired, his sperm is also tired? And if a woman is irritated and discontented, well, that will have an influence on the chemistry of the ovum. But they keep on doing research, so that's fine. There is the spiritual preparation, which of course it's for each person to choose which way, because each one of us has different approach to spirituality. Now, we come to the most important part of the preparation, which is the relationship of the two partners. That is the main important thing. How do you feel with each other? Do you have the same ideas about having a child? Do your family interfere or cooperate? Do you have the same idea about education, nutrition, and most of all, what is the basic relationship? Because all of this is done so that this baby finds a place of love and peace when it comes. So it's a very interesting thing. But, and I want to tell you something, how important, just imagine as a mathematical equation. Now, I don't have many more years to influence people. You have so many more years, and as younger you get, more years you have to do in the world what you think is good to do. But think of a baby. He might live 80, 90, 100 years. And he will influence the world around himself or herself, just as you have brought him in, the way that you have brought it in, okay? I want to, it's wonderful that you can say to a baby, I loved you so many years before you were born. I loved you from the very moment that the thought came into my mind. I want to tell you just another thing. If you change your mind after this year or two of preparation, if you change your mind, this preparation is just as important and creative for yourself. You will conceive, you have a conscious conception of yourself, a conscious conception of the relationship that you have with everything, with your work, with your career, with your friends, with the people you love, and also the ones that you don't love. This is a conscious conception relating to yourself. And it can be a new conception, like for the child, with a visionary common sense, so that you have a wide possibility. If you prepare like this and then you don't have a child, you don't have to be thinking that was for nothing. That is all for you. It's all for the best of you. So I want to tell you something that happened to me a few years ago. Generally, these things don't happen very well, very often. When you do something that you know that you did not do, that it just happened, it came from another place. And I found myself writing these lines, which in actuality are the direct understanding of visionary common sense. And these lines are a prayer, and it's called the prayer of the unconceived. Men and women who are on earth, you are our creators. We, the unconceived, beseech you. Let us have living bread, the builder of our new body. Let us have pure water, the vitalizer of our blood. Let us have clean air so that every breath is a caress. Let us feel the petals of jasmine and roses, which are as tender as your skin. Men and women who are on earth, you are our creators. We, the unconceived, beseech you. Do not give us a world of rage and fear, for our mind will be rage and fear. Do not give us violence and pollution, for our body will be disease and abomination. Let us be wherever we are, rather than bringing us into a tormented, self-destroying humanity. Men and women who are on earth, you are our creators. We, the unconceived, beseech you. If you are ready to love and to be loved, invite us into this earth of these thousand wonders, and we will be born to love and to be loved.
Laura Huxley, Al Huang.
Thank you. Let's bring together.
Let's bring together.
Let's sit up. Now we are going to sit up. Quickly, can we do it?
Thank you, Ms. Huxley. Now, please, I'm over here, right in front of you. We have a few moments for questions. If you'd like to do that, just raise your hand. I will try to acknowledge you. I can't get to everybody, but we'll get to those that we can. So if anybody has any questions for either Al or Laura or collectively, raise your hand and I will be there. Okay, over here. This is where I get my exercise.
Oh, look at him. He does very well.
He does his downhill.
Mrs. Huxley, you kind of joked about teenagers, but some of us do work with teenagers. What would you propose for a way of helping them to understand your message?
Yes, that is in fact the core of my work and what I want to do more than anything. I had already once a project where a teenager were taking care of toddlers, now not of baby, but of toddlers, for about 3 hours twice a week. I had that for a summer, a few summers ago, and the result at the end was, because we spoke a great deal, you know, we spoke to each other a great deal, and at the end they said that they were not going to have a baby for a long time, because they said it's exhausting. After 2 hours, they were exhausted. Now, this is my principle, what I'm doing now, what I'm trying to do, that to put it in school, so that teenagers have the training in school before conception. It's not easy to do, but to me that is the important thing to do, so that they know everything as far as books are concerned and all that, but they have to have the existential, the experimental experience of what it is to hear a baby cry in the middle of the night, and all of that, of which you all know, but that is, I think, is the one way, at least, not the only way. Now they have a doll that does that. There is a doll on the market that cries and does all kinds of mischief. And it's very interesting because the teenager want to borrow that doll for a weekend, but sure enough, on Sunday they bring it back. They said we had enough one weekend.
I want to add too that Laura at age 60 and adopted a dear friend's grandchild.
No, the child.
The child,
yeah.
The child. And then I watched Laura dealing with this infant and through teenage.
You have no idea. That is where I learned everything.
But you always approach it from the idealistic point, but also very practical point of view.
Oh, yes, because
and you learn a lot.
Oh,
theory is different than real practice.
Well, what you learn to bring up, I was alone. I had no family, widow actually. And to bring up a child like that in Hollywood, it is really something. But I learned a great deal. And after the most tremendous, most dramatic fight, we are the closest to people that you can imagine.
To your left over here. Please stand up.
All right. Ms. Huxley and my good friend Ao Wang, I work with incarcerated children, teenagers, and right through to adulthood. I work with them, and I often work with their parents who are also incarcerated. And I feel very helpless a lot of the time about what to do to get something started somewhere. You start at the home, but there's nobody at home. You start with the children, and they're not going anywhere. And there's so much love generated here. I wish there was some way that it could be brought back, and I wish there was some way that they could be open and receptive to it, because they don't know what we're talking about here. They've never experienced what's going on here.
That's right. You are so right. And that is my next project, and it's a very difficult project. We are just speaking about with Shun Liang to have first of all, I just gave a big conference, which is for teenagers, but teenagers don't come to conference. And so I try to give now a small conference only for teenagers and have them talk to us rather than us talk to them. It's very difficult, and if you can help in any way, I would be, and they would be tremendously grateful.
Our Ultimate Investment Foundation is a very small foundation with big vision, and I have been supporting Laura since the inception.
Yes.
And we just had a conference last May in Los Angeles, and together with Aldous Huxley's Centennial, and we have collected some wonderful people input, and many people are just now beginning to to join the force. So those of you who are in education, working with children and teenagers, do make contact with Laura, and she will welcome
please.
that.
That question is really the core question, and it's.
Laura, I think another thing about the love and compassion you mentioned, and why don't you tell them about the caressing room
The caressing
project,
room,
which I think they will
yes,
enjoy.
we have a few caressing room where elderly people, very often in recovery home, in what you call when they are nursing homes. Some of them cannot walk. And so we bring babies there 2 times a week, because the babies sometimes are left in front of television. So they are lonely, and the old people are often lonely because their family is not there. And you see these 2 loneliness just melt into tenderness. And that also, I do this thing without much help. So if anyone wants to help with that, it's wonderful. And they are so happy.
Let me describe this. I always talk about this. Laura found some small apartments, homes, and near the very poor part of Los Angeles, and she redecorate them and put nice lighting and rocking chair and then change the color. And then some of the teenager mothers who had to work and they have no place for the children and leave them. And so these babies need caressing, need love. And all these lonely elders who are in nursing homes, and one older woman took 3 bus change to come to this caressing room just so she can rock and coo with the baby. Yes. And what Laura has created, this kind of very simple, very human environment for the baby could have some loving. And elder people, men and women, will come to be the place and to carry, to hold the child, to sing and caress the baby. It's mutually wonderful. These are simple things. Once you understand the importance of
very simple, there is no really invention. Did you know that the baboon already had little babies?
That's right. The baboons, yeah. And we know that, but we're sometimes just too busy to do it.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes. Yes.
Micah?
I'm Sally, and I was wondering, could you tell us a little bit more about the book you were talking about and whether it's
the book, I think it's out there. The Child of Your Dreams is here, thank you.
And
I think probably it's there. And it starts with Prelude to Conception, to conscious conception, and then Reverence for Life, which is the period of pregnancy. And then the moment of birth, we call it O Nobly Born, which is the way that the Tibetan usually greet a person that is dying. But we thought, why when it's dying? When a baby is born, he's a noble being, and he has to be saluted in that way. And that will remain in his consciousness. And then we go to the first 5 years.
Let me read this. The title is called The Child of Your Dreams. The subtitle is Approaching Conception and Pregnancy with Inner Peace and Reverence for Life to Enhance the Development of Your Future Child. And this is a co-authorship, and Laura and her nephew, Piero Ferrucci, who's a wonderful psychologist. And so this is a wonderful book that I recommend to all of you who are interested in this.
And I tell you, if you have a child in the way that we describe the possibility there, you can hardly have overpopulation, because one child takes so much attention, so much energy that you cannot have many, but 1, maybe 2.
Another question here.
My name is Barbara. I'm a parent educator, and I've found remediation very frustrating. And I also teach childbirth classes, and I've decided to start teaching just what you're talking about, conscious preparation for conception, conscious conception, conscious pregnancy, conscious birth, conscious parenting. But I'm a little frustrated about finding open minds. And I wondered if you'd have any advice for me as far as reaching. I know I could talk to the people in this arena and they'd be receptive, but the people that I deal with in the world, the real world, are less so, and I just wondered if you have any advice for me.
Well, in fact, Laura and I talk about this, and I've been friends and advising and part of this project. And you're so right, sometimes you feel so lonely. This is why this conference is so meaningful each year, when we can come together and share this kind of kindred spirit. And what you have done already sometimes if you look at only for preparation for child, and you get a lot of adversary conflicts. People talk about overpopulation, and you spend so much energy with this romantic idea of conscious conception. But what Laura said earlier in her talk, when she said, even if you go through this whole preparation, even if you decide not to have a child, the whole preparation helps you as a human being. I think when you go to the essence of all these philosophical concepts, it's basically to cultivate the person. And you just need to use a different kind of language, different way to reach people who have prejudice or lack of awareness of what you're talking about. And in my own work, I know many of you here come from very practical life, and you are here to be in touch with a part of you that you are just learning how to express properly. And in the last 10 years in my life, from an academic, artistic background, philosophical background, I've been going out there working with corporate people very strongly, and I know Tom Crum has done that too. And you find language, you find a way to make the bridge easier to cross. And it's part of our own work.
Yes, and let me just say, well, you have the most difficult work, and the thing is that you have to do what Alwan said, you have to take care of the future parents before you actually tell them what to do. I mean, you have to give them, because they are in a difficult position. Parents to be, we are in a culture that is very difficult for parents.
You're dealing with the individual that you have to reflect.
Yes.
As you try to help who you are as an individual. You go to the very core, core reason, meanings. Yes, question there.
My name is Tim. Men have an obvious stakeholder status and role to play in this planning process. My question to you is, what do you think the number one thing a man can do in loving a woman to prepare for a harmonious family?
What's your advice?
Yes.
To the men.
Well, I think that to have love and respect for this woman is the greatest thing. And in actuality, by preparing yourself to be able to do that fully, that is the greatest preparation. To give a certain sense of confidence, a sense of the importance of what she's doing, what we're both doing together. And then there is a tremendous lot of advice on nutrition and all of things like that. And that has to be taken care very seriously. But you have to give a support and confidence that you are together.
As a man, I can probably relate to that. As a parent, and both my two daughters were born, and I'm proud to say that with the kind of initial preparation, both my wife and I felt very strongly. And we go through all parents, we learn. We used to tell our children, listen, we never had experience before until we have you, so you have to be compassionate towards us. We haven't had much preparation as parents either. So moments like this, you come to that true place. But as a man, I can tell you that we come from this society, the kind of culture, both in the West, in the East. Men are so left out on this whole process. And I remember in the early days, in movies, you always women go up and down the stairway with hot water, and men just pacing the room. All you just do, your whole purpose is just pacing, get worried. And I was one of the few early people. When I had our first child, I was the few men in our hospital. I pleaded and begged, and finally the doctor was compassionate, allowed me to be there. I was one of the first person was able to be there at the birth of my own daughter. And there was, many of you have the experience, it just totally transformed you, totally. And many years ago, after I met Frederick Laboyer, in fact, at Laura's conference, 1977, and with the birth of Without Violence, and he and I were at the conference in Davos, Switzerland, and when he was giving a talk about the birth, and he confessed that he had delivered so many babies, but he never was a father himself. So there's a certain sense of remorse and regret. And all the men in the room, two men start crying. And this one young man said, I'm a grandfather, I'm a young grandfather, but My children, I never was at the birth of my baby. My daughters, my son would not let me be there. I want to be participating, but I cannot do it. So suddenly, and I had this great idea, give me a chance for Tai Chi. Now all the men here especially, would you put your hand right here in the womb place? Let's give birth. Let's give birth to the essence. See, we know, we all came from the same place. Anybody have exceptions here? Man and woman, we all came from the womb. We know where it comes from, we know. We know the feeling, that's the gut feeling. We know the feeling, so let's put our hand here. Everybody, men help, women help us. Ha ha. Let's just quickly, in the Tai Chi way, give birth to our deep essential child. Ha ha. And feel involved. We are not just a side bystander. We are all there. We came from there. We are part of this big moment of life. Okay.
Al Huang, Laura Huxley, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Big hand, please. Thank you. Thank you.